Welcome, guys. I'm sure you've had a bunch of fun. I'm Seth. I hide in the background of all these amazing engineering people and just keep my head in the engineering. So anyway, I decided to get these three up here. Figure we could answer any questions that, the sessions haven't covered so far. Stump us. Seriously. We're human pinatas here for your pleasure. Starting from the right.
Did you have any softballs you queued up for when nobody asked questions?
I have a few, but I prefer curves.
So I'm Jens. I've been doing this for, I had hair once. That's when I started doing this, and now you see what happens. So been doing tons of weird deployments around the world. Pretty much any curveball you can throw at me, I may have a solution for it. I may not, but bring it on.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael. My core focus is telephony and devices. I was part of the direct routing TAP before it came out. I reverse engineered CCE, or Cloud Connector, put it in Azure using the min-top topology. Made that carrier grade, so if it's voice or devices related, I could answer that, but also extensibility or graph.
Hey, I'm Torren. I've been doing this since it was Live Communication Server 2003 and didn't do very much. And my job is to build what Adam sells.
And like I said, I'm Seth. I'm at Converge 1. I used to do what Jens fed me, and then now he's gone, so I get to do all the big global stuff for C1. But I've not been doing it quite as long. I think I got into it in Link 2010. But, all right.
You have more hair, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I've got a little bit left. So at this point, where are your pinatas? Who wants to go first? Really?
And not just technical questions.
Don't make us pick someone.
Also the human aspect, kind of operations, how do we deal with this stuff, right?
Yeah, we've probably seen it.
No question for you. You cannot ask why.
Aaron. Huh?
What do you do to relax?
Speaking of which, this presentation brought to you by Logitech.
Actually, I just took a meditation class with the wife, 10 weeks meditation class, and I learned a lot, and it was actually pretty awesome. Highly recommend it. We really live in a high-stress world. We do a lot of high-stress jobs, so highly recommend a meditation class.
So I couldn't tell with that accent. Did you say meditation or medication?
Could be either. Have you met Jens?
Yep.
There we go. All right.
But it's funny looking at Viva and seeing the mindfulness meditation showing up in there. I'm like, man, I just did this. So, yeah.
I took up BMX racing at the ripe young age of 48. Nice. Top 3 finish for my first 4 races.
And you didn't break a collarbone? That was an internal joke, Robin. So what do you do for fun, Michael?
Michael doesn't relax.
I'm a bad example for work-life balance. So.
And me, I just throw myself off mountains. So it's, I have a death wish. Really? All right.
Look out, Jamie!
What is the cloud?
What is the cloud?
Someone else's computer.
It's that data center you never visit.
I was gonna say I thought it was the fluff in between my ears, but
There you go. Ready? What's the vision for call queues for management, where they can see like a contact center manager can see calls in queue, some of the advanced stuff like that on call queuing?
well, we've got someone from Landis sitting, row
Buy
4.
a contact center. Yes. Generally, we had a session, was it yesterday, with Jamie Stark? He said more stuff's coming to call queues. I doubt you're going to get any further reporting from Microsoft, but there are third parties.
Okay.
Code Software is here as one of the sponsors, and they do some real-time reporting around call queues. So call queues are good. Call them hunt groups. It's more for these kind of internal departments, your IT department, HR, whatever. But anytime you're doing anything that's high volume customer facing, start reaching out to the real contact center vendors. There's about 8 or 10 of them that are certified right now. Landis is here, they have a certified solution. Anywhere 365 is here, they have a certified solution that all integrates at some level with Teams. But again, it's a little bit of a different beast than your standard enterprise voice. So it really comes down to what features and functionalities do you need in the contact center, and it's something that us voice guys, I'm just starting to get into that right now, and I've been doing voice for 12 years, and now I'm slowly pivoting into the contact center aspect, and it's just a different mindset.
I'd also say, if you're a glutton for punishment, and maybe Jamie or Sean can comment better on this, some of the Graph API CDR stuff, you can get it into Power BI if you really want to build your own. But otherwise, yeah, I'd say Code or Anywhere or 365, Landis, Luware, and Luware is here as well.
Also, Ignite's around the corner, so you may want to watch Ignite.
Yeah, fair point.
Everyone's questions got answered.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anybody have any special sauce for getting around the last 6 months of Microsoft reporting? Any tricks anyone for?
What, for reporting requests?
Yeah, so the question is,
Then wait, the question was, does anyone have any special sauce for getting around Microsoft's porting issues for the past 6-8 months or so when everything fell off a cliff? Or do we all just wait?
hand the problem to someone else who does nothing but porting.
Yeah, that's what I did. He hasn't quit yet, but he will soon.
Yeah. It's,
One thing I'll say is
Today.
Here, Sean.
What's that?
Get up here, Sean.
No,
there's whiskey.
that's okay. I had plenty last night. So the number porting, there's actually a session that was done, and I'll try to find the link, and I'll get it out to the company next crew, or I'll tag it in Twitter. But it actually was a best practices on porting, because when trust me, I escalate to the porting team all the time, and they were understaffed when we got hit, and then they got ramped, and they're still going through it. But 85% of the things that are failing is because of PEBCAC, right? So.
Well, and also customers not doing their due diligence. So,
Yes.
you know, it's there's so many things that can go wrong during a number port, and it doesn't just apply to porting into Microsoft. It's anytime you're porting between two carriers. So the first thing you want to do is you really want to reach out to the losing vendor. And it's a tough discussion to have, because you're calling up your account rep and you're telling them, I'm taking my business elsewhere. But you really need to have kind of a working relationship with them, even though they're the losing carrier. It helps if you still maintain some network with them, you know, your MPLS with them or whatever.
What we wound up doing, and I was just curious if anyone had anything magic, what we wound up doing was basically taking LOAs on every single client account and just building that into the statement of work.
Yes.
Whether it's 3 lines, 5 lines, or 500 lines, and then bringing that into our support and then putting one person in charge of it. We do follow the best practices document, and that has helped. And I mean, it's definitely not like it was, you know, early summer.
It's always a precarious situation, and it starts with, you got to pull, the first thing you start with is go to accounting, pull your last bill.
Right.
Now you have the billing telephone number. Go back to the vendor and
Get
say,
CSRs.
Get your CSRs, customer service report,
record, yeah.
or records, so you know which DIDs you're dealing with. Figure out, do you have DSL on stuff? Not that that's a big thing anymore. Are there diverts in numbers? Are you doing anything goofy with numbers and whatever else? Then you got to find out, can I do full port? Am I doing partial ports? And then you got to go through the LOA stuff, and you better cross your T's and dot your I's, because they will reject LOAs even 3 days before porting.
And if you do a partial port that changes the BTN, then the whole thing falls apart.
Yep.
All that other stuff. Okay.
Well, one of the other
And
things
even though FCC says a simple port is 3 business days, a port is 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we had that drove us absolutely nuts, we were porting away from, I can't remember who the carrier was, but they had acquired another carrier, and the DIDs that they were trying to port were split between the original the original carrier and this one. And so the single LOA that the carrier provided us, Microsoft rejected, because even on the back end, it saw the old carrier identifier split between the two.
Right.
So I mean, even the losing carriers, you got to ride your account reps and say, make sure you split everything.
Okay. Same old story.
Yeah.
David?
And back to David. Oh, right.
Yeah. So, what is a feature that does not exist today that you would like to see, or a competitor already has?
Private lines, having a secondary DID associated with a user. I know unassigned numbers is going to kind of take care of that, but it's still not a private line feature, and it's something I'm still seeing customers asking about.
I've had 3 customers now have asked me for a call to come in and go directly to their admin assistants and not ring them, and then for the admin assistants to be able to screen the call and transfer it to the executive.
You've seen Power Automate and how you can do simple flows. I want that over auto tenants and call queues.
Ooh, good one.
Jamie is writing notes furiously.
Jamie showed me that 4 years ago. What happened, Jamie?
Which one?
Yeah, like Jamie showed the wizard over a call queue being improved, but when you are multi-tiering these, it'd be nice to have it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all those are great, but for me, you know, granted, I'm not spending as much time on that end. I get to hand that off to other engineers, which is great now. But if not, and I've already harped on the Microsoft guys on this. God damn it! Give me Graph API access to the voice side of Teams. I just can't teach PowerShell to my customers, to all of them. So
Build a simple Power app that could call the API and they could just have an admin assistant assign phone numbers.
yeah, or I can build a web interface for it, because building a web interface for a PowerShell script is, I'm sorry, it's a non-starter. Don't do it.
What have been some of the experiences where clients are working with the carriers for direct routing, and they're now offering that out there where they're not having them there on-prem, and because they want to be able to have, like, they've got a VIP assigned to them, or they're trying to load balance between them in certain different areas? What has that experience been like? Because it's not...
Well, if I could change my shirt, I would say I love managed direct routing, but Jens, go ahead.
Well, I would say if I never have to touch an SBC ever again, I'll be a heavy camper. There's some really good ITSPs out there, direct routing as a service providers out there. There's some not so great ones. They're all in different stages of maturing. The greater ones I've worked with have been to the point where I say jump and they say how high. and I know what SBCs are capable of, whether it be a SIP registration for a paging system, maybe it's a diversion of a number based on time of day, maybe it's that we're trunking back into legacy telephony equipment where we can't support encryption on the SIP trunk, but the carrier says we're fine, we can nail up site-to-site VPN. So, and also, you cannot pick a carrier these days for direct routing as a service if they don't support dynamic E911. And that's going to be my next session. So if you're dealing with ITSPs and you're letting go of having control of these SBCs, you better make damn sure that your carrier supports E911. But it's really maturing. I love it. Operator Connect is kind of like, gives you that kind of same thing, you know, but it gives you that, you can now manage your numbers in the portal, but I don't quite get the point of Operator Connect, but yes, it's there as well.
Yeah, if you're working with managed or carriers that are doing direct routing, see what their team's professional services team is like.
What team?
Yeah.
Then you find a different carrier.
What I've been seeing, especially to Yen's point about E911, the carriers that are doing it and doing it right, probably 9 out of 10 of the ones that I talk to, they're all, Intrado on the back end, right? They're just basically saying, hey, we're just going to resell Intrado straight to you, and here are your extra steps to get your DIDs into the Intrado portal, or we'll do it for you. A lot of them right now are still only doing static reg and ELINs. Of course, that's going to change in the next couple of months, especially with the plugin coming for the Teams client that'll ask you for location if you can't detect. But I will say that especially DRAS out of country, Europe, APAC, those places, it's been a nightmare getting ELINs to work just because the different carriers either reg or they don't reg. That's usually my biggest issue with them.
Okay.
No, nothing from you. Okay. Going back to Young.
Okay, so question about the voice routing, a little bit technical. So back in like Link and Skype Business Day on-prem, so best practice of handling of the backup routing is using the PSN usage, your primary SBC in that first primary PSN usage, and secondary, you go to the secondary PSN usage. But after moving to Microsoft Team Direct Routing, and all the documents said you're gonna deal with the backup with a voice route priority. But priority is a global value. Even though if you add new route, voice route, that it will override. So you guys still recommending, so what is the best practice to handling backup route to another SBC? Either PSN usage or voice route with a priority?
So I think it depends on the situation. If you're doing direct routing as a service where everything is basically cloud, throw both your SBCs in the same voice route. And they'll do a random weight on those SBCs because we're not really tied to a location anymore. And it really simplifies your routing because you're not having primary PSTN usages, backup PSTN usages, primary routes, backup routes, and having to deal with that, primary, secondary. The thing about having multiple SBCs in the same voice route is that you can't control what's primary, secondary, but if you're fully cloud, who cares, right?
Right.
If you're still attached to physical locations where you're saying, I've got East Coast data center, I've got West Coast data center, I'm providing my own SBCs, I have users that are East Coast, West Coast, I'm using local media optimization. Torren just did a spiel on that. And you want to provide the shortest media path to your primary gateway, then it still makes sense to do it like the old Skype days where you're doing primary, secondary. So that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
In Teams, though, you're going to do it by route and then usage, because route is evaluated first in this case,
Right.
and then usage.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Anyone?
What is your favorite Teams feature, and then the one that you want the most improvement on?
I can tell you my most
Delegating your calls to me.
Yes, no. Or, yes, either delegating my calls to Torren or do not disturb.
The unassigned number feature that just came out, that's probably my favorite now that it removes some of the workarounds that we were doing with auto tents and call queues to redirect numbers and deal with all the resource accounts to handle that. Featured improvement is probably on the PowerShell side, being able to actually pass tokens to the voice commandlets.
Favorite feature, probably being able to hit that red phone icon and decline Jens's phone calls. And the one for most improvement, had a great conversation with Jamie yesterday, having an RBAC role for user administration within Teams, so that you can give your lower tier guys ability to configure users but not break anything else.
Ooh. Yes, please.
And sometimes me not break anything else.
God. Favorite Teams feature? I have to pick one? You sure? Okay, well, fine. I don't know. I think because I live my life in direct routing, I don't deal with any of the other stuff anymore. So I think my absolute favorite feature now is going to be that unassigned number. It's that ability to say, hey, do this with a number and not have to, create a bunch of resource accounts. But, other than needing Graph API access, but, sorry. Dead horse, it's getting bloodier. I think delegated access, but more so from the end user side for the call queues, auto attendants, and the ability to say, hey, supervisor, you want to change your hours, you want to change your queue members, you want to change your messages, you want to, any of that. And the biggest feature request I get on that side, though, from most of my customers is they want an out of office timer or a call, an on call. Like the ability to say, hey, I want to be able to have my supervisors able to say, either through shifts or through some other mechanism, here's my on-call rotation, auto update this queue. And then from that point, the other thing they request the most, I'm expanding this a little bit because there's lots of features I'd like to see, is the ability for, right now when you use the collaborative call queues, right, you have to go into the channel if you want to place a call as the queue, if you want to be masked, right, to Jens's point, a private, DID is only as good as the ability to use it or not as an outbound as well, right? So the ability for users to just be a member of a queue, not even a collaborative queue, and be able to use that outbound masking straight from their dial pad, I think would be the second most popular one.
I think there's still some little bit of work to be done on delegation of inbound call handling, where right now in the Microsoft space, it's all Teams admins who's controlling and managing that, where you are moving people from, let me say these words, Cisco, Avaya, whatever, where kind of hunt groups are something that business unit managers can have some kind of administration of, whether it be a snow day, saying the office is closed today, make that on-the-fly change, doing changing recordings on the fly, those types of things. And we're seeing that with, migrating people from other platforms, and the business is going like, well, you're taking that away from us now, and you're making that an IT task at this point, right?
Yeah, that example from other platforms, it's kind of backwards in Teams. So in those other platforms, the admins manage the call forwarding settings for the endpoint, but in Teams, the end user does, and we're road mapping to be able to do that as an admin. But then on the advanced call flows, on the other systems, they usually delegate that to the teams that are using those, but then it takes it to the admin on the team side.
Yeah,
So
it's funny, group pickup and delegation and stuff typically was kind of an admin, IT admin kind of function, and nowadays it's like we just need to guide people on how to do this, right?
new PowerShell module has the ability to see the values, though. 2.6.1 preview.
I think our friends at Chrome Software solve a lot of these problems.
There was a comment of Code Software has some fixes.
Shameless plug.
So code software is doing some RBAC or delegated management of call queues, the latest module coming out, but it sounds like Jamie is also working on some of that stuff internally at Microsoft. Yeah. So, and it's kind of precarious. I would hate sometimes being a partner in the Microsoft ecosystem, going out, creating something, and then finding, oh, there's a niche for this because people are asking for this, and then 6 months later, their product becomes non-relevant because Jamie took care of it, right?
I mean, I'll take it, you know, I deal with a lot more large customers where it becomes automation or, you know, delegation of user enablement, user management. These features with call queues, auto attendance become important. And so, you know, more and more I start, you know, seeing relevance for products. I mean, code software for kind of the smaller groups, but then you look at, you know, the four big ones out there. You've got what, Voss for UC, you've got Unimax, Second Nature, you've got Kermi, and you've got, I think, Starfish is the fourth big one. You know, if you have the money to do it, those platforms, especially if you don't have a huge team, a good tech team to manage all of this, you know, the Teams Admin Center and PowerShell is only going to ever do so much, right? I mean, Microsoft can only do so much. They can't manage Cisco, they can't manage Avaya. And these wonderful tools, you know, will take your business processes and extend it, right? You know, they'll say, okay, you want DID management? That's part of this. You want us to manage your Cisco environment and your Avaya environment as you're moving to Teams? We'll do that, right? You know, the ability to say, hey, you're now plugged in at the API level to AES and Avaya, and I can't remember what that API is called in Cisco, whatever the hell it is. You know, and the ability to say, hey, here are what my Cisco users have from this site, and based on AD groups or whatever, here are the templates they're going to get for policies, whatever, in Teams. And you can have all of these tools just basically say, okay, I, the engineer, have set up your SBCs, I've set up all of the core bits. Now you, the tier one help desk person, or you, the client, upload an Excel spreadsheet, it'll validate against your AD, and now we're just going to pull, we'll run all the necessary steps that you can customize to remove them from the old system, enable them in the new, audit the whole thing, stop it if it fails, roll it back if it fails on a user by user basis. It's expensive, but it gives you, you know, a lot of these features that, and again, they're just abstracting PowerShell into a web GUI, basically, for right now. I mean, Graph API comes out, it'll change the world, but but they give you that additional capability, especially for the legacy users, where you're able to say, hey, you can still use your Cisco for your contact center for now, right, as we're moving you. We can give your one team who knows how to run Cisco the ability to do the Teams migrations. They don't have to know what Teams is doing. They just have to know, here are the templates from A to B, go, right? And the same thing with the call queues and auto tenants for management by delegated people. These tools give you role-based access control. So, I mean, that's an option for you, right? If you need it now and you have the budget for the client, these are wonderful solutions for that.
I say call Richard.
Yeah,
He'll build you something.
1-888 Argyle.
Bueller. Eric.
So with unassigned numbers, if you guys had, like right now today it doesn't exist, but if you guys had the option.
It does exist.
Oh, no, what I'm about to ask you doesn't exist. If you had the opportunity to be able to control the SIP response message on an unassigned number, so instead of you dialing into a number and saying, oh yeah, we have an unassigned number, cool, hang up the call. What would your guys' thoughts be on being able to respond with like a 607 saying, hey, it's unwanted, or something that just terminates the call? Because there's some carriers that bill by short call duration. If you have like a certain amount of calls, a threshold by in a month period.
Get a new carrier.
What's this SIP thing he's talking about? We're talking teams here, right?
I think it'd be awesome. I mean, I look from the perspective of me again. I'm a direct routing guy. I'm dyed in the wool, whatever. You know, with and I'll speak from the experience of ribbon and audio codes because that's where I live. Others can do this, I think, but with audio codes especially, I tend to use a lot of what's called 404 request routing, where I have the SBC configured to say, hey, if Teams ships back a 404 because it just doesn't have the number, move on to the next system, whether it's Cisco, whether it's Avaya, whether it's the call center, whether it's the analog gateways, depending on how we have the dial plan set up in the SBC. And that generates a lot of false positives in reporting, right? It's not exactly the most ideal thing, and Jens hates it, right? It's something he taught me to never use.
Migration.
Yeah, it's
404 is great during a migration, but you don't want to leave it in place.
Right.
Like you said, it does create a lot of false positives.
Yeah, so having the ability to say, if you have to use something like that because your client just simply can't maintain a dial plan or doesn't have something that's doing DID based, data, they're not using AD and AD integrated routing, or they're not using calling plans, please, right? Then having the ability to customize what that error code is and being able to tell, being able to work with, whether it's audio codes, whether it's ribbon, whether it's any whomever, right? To be able to say, hey, just note that, when you go through these IP rules, treat it as a single call, right? So don't give me a 404 for each leg that fails, right? And then you don't get that issue, right? And you either terminate the call at the end of that, and it's milliseconds, right?
And again, choose your carriers wisely. It's all about cost as well. We were having an internal discussion, and I was hitting up Adam and I. We were spending probably half an hour talking about least cost routing, and that's something we used to do back in the on-prem days, where you're doing a global deployment. You've got SBCs in North America, South America, Europe, wherever, and it's like, yeah, we want to do least cost routing. It's a lot of work to do least cost routing because there's a lot of regex patterns that you got to match and route to. And then we started talking to some of the carriers we typically work with, and we're doing global deployments with them, and we're saying we've got connection points in Europe, we've got connection points in the US. You as a carrier, are you charging more for international calls? Should I do least cost routing and have my European calls drop off in Europe? And the carrier is saying, hell no, we're going to do that for you. And it's not going to cost you anymore. So again, when you're talking about, global systems, really, really investigate your carriers, because that's that long-term relationship you're going to have. And, in this day and age, so many things really rides on the carrier now.
And I think it goes back to the why. Why are you hitting a four? No, you can't answer a why.
Oh.
But why are you triggering an unassigned number, right? So if it's not during a migration and it's in production direct routing, well, there is now unassigned numbers within direct routing. So it supports across calling plans, operator connected direct routing. So send that to the main line, send that to a message. Don't send it to message if you're worried about cost, because the call doesn't complete until someone hangs up.
Send it to Jens.
Send it to the manager of that group, and so unassigned numbers may also be something that you may want to get the business to manage, because who's the manager of that group, of that employee that left? Who is going to take the calls from that salesperson that used to answer that number? You don't necessarily want that to go to an auto attendant. You may need that number to go to a person that's another person that has that responsibility within the organization.
And I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, which is unfortunate. But one of the questions I still have to actually ask the Microsoft folks is, I build a range, right? It's a regex string, whatever, and then I assign the number to someone. His team's going to automatically exclude it from the unassigned number range.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that actually work?
Yes.
Test it. Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh.
Power arm, Eric.
I'm a lefty. That's wrong side, Eric.
One thing I've noticed is not necessarily the termination carrier, but if you pass a 486 or a 404 back to certain origination carriers, they just ignore it. They want to terminate and charge you or charge their customer and be able to bill. So it's not always the actual carrier that you're connected to.
Fair enough.
If you're stuck with that nasty carrier, you can always change that code in the SBC.
And it goes back to what Eric was saying. He's found some that they don't do another seizure on. So.
And then when your contract is up,
You can't control what the other people have. I mean, I have a Vonage line in my office that I use for a lot of my test calls, just so I have different carriers. And Vonage sucks, so I know.
I ported my Magic Jack number to Teams at home over 5 years ago, so there's no excuse for you.
When you're testing Teams, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to have another number on Teams, but.
I will say this: it's been carrier by carrier for me, doing 911, and again, this is in the U.S. and Canada only, so we're dealing with Red Scan, or whatever. When Teams is shipping down those pitiful messages, right? It's shipping that out regardless. If for some reason your routes have it going out to a carrier, just about every carrier I've dealt with so far has dropped the 911 call because there's pitiflow in it. So so they just see pitiflow and they send you back a 480 malformed message or malformed SIP message invite. So at the SBC,
find a new carrier.
Yeah. So one, tell them to integrate into Intrauto or Red Scar, whomever for you, right? One, just take it so I don't have to buy another contract. And two, just be aware if you are doing direct routing with them, make sure you have your message manipulation rules created properly to strip that piece of the invite when you send it to your carrier for your backup routes to your ERS provider. Just to throw that out there.
You're sometimes screwed when you're negotiating these long-term contracts.
You really are.
It's no different than buying an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. You're kind of locked in for 3 years, right?
Ouch.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if you're ever dealing with PRIs, definitely talk to Jens.
PRIs are beautiful. We see a lot of them in China still.
Oh yeah, China, India, yeah,
Nigeria.
Oh God, South America, a lot of South America.
You just want to test me, huh?
Oh!
So what is the technical limitation as to why you cannot have a dial-in conference number via direct routing?
Did he just say why?
He did just say
why.
What?
You're expelled.
In GCC, you can.
You see. Yeah,
that's correct. GCC high.
You can from your internal extensions.
Yeah, I mean, if you set the route on your internal SBC to send it out the direct routing truck, Microsoft will support that. They just won't support ingress to it over the PSTN from outside users.
I would love to see nested dial plans. I would love to see location-based dial plans. So if I'm in this location working this day and I'm dialing 1,000, I'm going to hit the front desk in this location.
So it's funny you bring this up because that was actually going to be my question. And I don't remember specifically where the constraint is. I don't remember if it's number of normalization rules per dial plan or number of dial plans per assignment to a user. I want to say it's the former, but there is a constraint there, and I've had some feedback that come in and say, oh, big customers is a really big issue. They end up having really complicated dial plans or whatever because they have this limitation, and internally some of the conversation turns into, well, clearly they're doing it wrong. Their dial plans are too complicated, and if they just spend a little bit more time with their regex, then then they wouldn't have this issue. So I'm kind of curious, like, this is one that would be sophisticated for the team to tackle because dial plans and normalization rules are buried way deep into the stack, right? But if that's a difficulty, right? Like, one, is that something y'all run into? And two, is there any truth to if you were just a little bit more efficient in your dial plan / normalization rule creation, you wouldn't run into this?
We're not all information workers. We're rolling out voice platforms to users that are not all necessarily information workers. I'm dealing with different organizations where we have to make teams look like an old-fashioned key system. And there's nothing I can do about it because that's how the business operates. It's not persona-driven, it's station function-driven. And if the platform can't take that into consideration, there's a huge market share that's lost because you got to stay on another platform that you're running side by side then.
I've got a large customer who's going to integrate Teams with another PBX and are running into those extension dialing limitations. And it's not necessarily just, going Ken Lasgo on the regex. It's just not possible. They're just that big.
Yeah, the only time I hit the rule limit is when the extension has no correlation with the DID. And then you have to do all your 4 digits or whatever, and they're all individual rules. You easily hit the limit when you're in it, dealing with an enterprise.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of people, like I've walked into a couple of environments where they did it as trunk translation rules. And my God, did that drive me up the wall.
It's just dangerous. I had a customer who wanted to do unassigned numbers with trunk translation rules, and I said, that's great. And you fat finger that one time, and you're taking down the whole trunk. How's that?
You have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
I mean, don't get me wrong, the automated, like the basic, like when you're in the dial plans, right? The little wizard you guys give is great for the initial people, but it fails me 9 times out of 10 if I want to just do something super quick. I always end up going my regex 101, making sure my string actually matches, and then dropping it in the advanced.
Well, we're never going to get around regex.
No, God, no.
And regex is awesome, because
I love it. It's just
really
it's
doing
complex
the job for us, right?
We still have an opportunity to make it easier. We still lower the barrier to entry. We still make it easier for folks. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as an end user and using dial plans, if you want to block a number, it works perfectly on the desktop. You can add a number, block it. But if you're using direct routing, that does not work. So, I don't know if you have seen that. The end user would still add that number to their block list, but the call will still come in. And that's actually in the docs. And I cannot get somebody else to replicate it for me. So,
Jamie.
So the question is like, if they're using direct routing, why there's not a flag that grays out that option for the user? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see it, Mary, okay. Thank you, yes, we've seen it. But it ties into that, it ties into the spam, it ties into trunk translation rules. How can you at a tenant level easily manage, whether it's block numbers, whether it's specialized caller IDs, whether it's, I get this one all the time, especially for like front desk workers. Why can't we establish company-wide contact speed dial lists that we can issue to people? I get that all the time. We can't do a lot of these things from a tenant level.
But the user
I want to change my earlier answer.
The user believes
company-wide contact list is my most wanted feature.
You've got a question behind you there.
And then have you tried blocking with using PowerShell? Because from the admin, you can block ranges and regex.
But that's if you're an admin. That works.
The admin can also pull the report of blocked numbers.
But the end user believes that, I actually blocked this number. No.
Sometimes you just need a placebo to feed it.
Something about if the call is forwarded, that the block doesn't work. So I may have this number on my block list, but if it was forwarded from another user.
From an auto tenant or a call queue.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, if it flows through the advanced call routing, then it will get to the user.
So just to reemphasize everything that's been said today, like the graph API exposure to voice, the speed dials and treating Teams as a key system. So we're working with a client now where we're setting up 20 accounts per site, 3,000 locations. They want us to pre-populate speed dials for everybody in that site. So we've leveraged the graph API to push contacts in, but then somebody has to individually log into each account and star all the contacts to make them speed dials. And unless somebody has an answer on how to do it via the graph, I'm open to suggestions, but yes, it is a pain in the butt. And then also, since we have Landis in the room and Microsoft leadership, when are they going to get the API finally to do an attendant console?
Or when is the backend API going to make the robot-based attendant consoles actually deliver a message into the user's voicemail and not just bouncing back to the attendant?
I would take that one step further. And it's a little bit of a non sequitur, but when are we going to be able to make the change and have it happen in less than 3 hours?
3 hours is being generous.
It is.
I mean, it depends on the change.
Looking at it, I don't see that as a huge problem. Remember the Skype days, we still had the MSM the message queuing. Everything we did went through a message queue, right? And you're not just hitting something directly, it's all being queued up. And looking at how huge this beast is, you're not going to be making changes directly onto the engine. Everything is going to get queued up. So patience is a virtue. But being able to get some feedback on saying, I made this change, did this change take effect yet? That, I would say, is probably worth more than, because realistically, we're not going to get to a system where we can just make a change and it happens. But getting the feedback on, am I in limbo here? Did I screw something up? And is it pending? Is synchronization has happened?
Or can I force my client to suck down a new policy instead of not knowing when it's going to run?
Yeah, I mean, some changes are pretty instant, like modifying call queues and auto tenants when they already exist. I was demoing that yesterday, and they're instant. You make instant changes. Some of the changes to users applying licenses, assigning phone numbers. If you're doing it through PowerShell, you can do like a star type and a star MCO, and you can see like pending in Azure Active Directory, pending in the business voice directory. So you can kind of monitor what's going on, but an indicator of, like this change is pending and when it'll be, well, maybe not when, but at least knowing when it's completed.
Or when you're doing that big migration, can you go for dinner?
Well, and it's again, when you're doing your scripting, I'm creating a bunch of things, then I do a loop to see, have all these things been created before I can start modify parameters on it. And sometimes that loop will be 10 loops, sometimes it'll be 120 loops. So I don't do it based on time. I'm actually going in and doing a get statement on the various things I've created. And once all my get statements are coming out clear, oh yeah, these 120 items have now been created because I can get them. Now I can start applying more configuration to them.
You can also use the self-help diag tools to do some one-off spot checks. So if you wanted to see if the auto tenant has applied the phone number, but you're getting the results on the local directory versus the business voice directory, you could put that in that test and it'll say, hey, there's a sync mismatch, and then you can actually force the sync. But be careful with that. You don't want to keep pushing the sync while it's trying to sync. So.
I was 0 days old when I learned this.
We've got 4 minutes, give or take, left.
Lightning round.
Yeah.
Would you love to have dial plan inheritance to solve all of your problems? And why hasn't Jamie done it yet?
Well, didn't we just talk about nested tile plans and location-based tile plans? Do you really want to give this guy a coronary?
I mean, manage direct routing with a .star rule. Just send everything E164. You don't need a dial plan.
I mean, I'm happy to write pretty.
solves everything.
I'm happy to write pretty web pages that show nested dial plans, but they're not going to do anything if the service doesn't implement it, right? So, like, I mean, I get it. Yeah, I'm happy to be the punching bag here. It's all good. That's totally fair. But, you know, I mean, that's why I was asking about, you know, are there some real inhibitors to you know, bigger customers and more complicated deployments or whatever with respect to dial plans. I don't know what the solve is. I just know it's crazy difficult, and there's a real reason why there's an integer there that says you can't go over that, because when you do and you have a really complicated dial plan, then the route, then like the state machine that manages routes will just take too long, and calls will fail randomly in like weird ways. So there's a good reason that stuff's there, but to engineer our way out of it is significant. So anyway,
But you could add
we
that
can still
to the
do it.
advanced communication license.
In case you guys are wondering what the limit is, the documented limit is 1,000 dial plans in a tenant with 50 rules each for 50,000 rules. For my testing, I was able to get 167 dial plans with 350 rules each.
Thank you, C3PO.
Yeah, no, what I've ended up doing to get around it is to not use Teams to do it at all. I mean, you essentially .star in Teams, or you do something similar. And if you have direct routing, obviously you can't do this with a carrier unless the carrier is amazing, and whoever they are, you tell me who they are, and I'm going to start using them. You know, if you're using, you know, I'm speaking audio codes parlance, you're using ARM, or if you're in Ribbon, you're talking PSX, ECB in Oracle world, SME in Cisco world, etc., where you let those systems take over. Or back there in the new wave, I'm sure he's grinning. He's like, buy our iPilot product. You know, give the, you know, those are systems that are designed to do that. They're advanced routing engines that do nothing but, you know, if you have a highly available infrastructure on the back end and you're not worried about primary, secondary, you know, go to this SBC, then this SBC, if they can all connect to the same SIP carriers, then yeah, you could drop that there and say, hey, if, you know, the source numbers match whatever, it's just how much labor and time do you want to put into it, or can you buy a solution that just automatically does it for you?
What is this SBC thing this guy's talking about?
Yeah, I know, I'm the ugly redheaded stepchild, but, you know. 30 seconds, come on. Oh, who are our
Can we
favorite
stop the
carriers?
recording?
Microsoft?
I second that.
Third.
Yeah, I'll fourth that one. But,
Talk to us after.
yeah. Time's up. You're out of
Has the recording stopped?
All right. Well, we've done the questions. Please, yeah, you can bash us all you want, but please fill out your evaluations for the other sessions. Please, you know, contact us. I mean, we're here. I mean, we all obviously have full-time jobs, but you know, we were talking here earlier. If you have questions outside of this, let us know. We're a community. Help each other. Thank you, especially to these fine people who actually make our jobs possible. Some of whom pay our paychecks, some who just give us good toys to play with. Thank you all. Thank you for sponsoring events like this, and safe travels, everybody.
Stick around for Jens' session.